Hello and welcome to a very special episode of iBuzz. In today's episode, we will pay tribute to the hard rock music genre. Hard rock, a loosely defined subgenre of rock music typified by a heavy use of aggressive vocals, distorted electric guitars, bass guitar, and drums, and sometimes accompanied with keyboards. It began in the mid-1960s with the garage, psychedelic, and blues rock movements. Some of the earliest hard rock music was produced by the Kinks, The Who, the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, Cream, and the Jimi Hendrix Experience. In the late 1960s, bands such as the Jeff Beck Group, Iron Butterfly, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Golden Earrings, Steppenwolf, and Deep Purple also produced hard rock. In today's episode, we will pay tribute to the top hard rock bands who uplifted the music scene back in the 70s. To pay the tribute, we are joined by a musician and a guitarist from Surge band, Tipu Sultan. Tipu, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So Tipu, how would you define the difference between rock music and hard rock music?
Well, there's no very distinct division between the two. It's just that in hard rock, the guitars are more aggressive, they're more distorted, the rhythms are heavier and more percussive, more thump. And the subject matter of the lyrical content is also based on aggressive themes and sometimes Satanism and witchcraft was done by Black Sabbath and some other bands. So there's not a very distinct division between the two, but it's usually the intensity of the guitars and the level of distortion. Right. And hard rock began to lose its popularity because of the rise of commercial success of R&B and hip hop. So how did it affect the rise of these music genres, urban pop? How did these genres affect the hard rock music? Well, I think basically because music is very deeply connected with culture, and it's always music becomes popular with a certain class of society which can relate to the lyrical content, to the kind of music. And during the 70s, because there was a lot of angst, there was a lot of unemployment, financial times were hard, so a lot of people could relate to rock and heavy forms of music. But in the 80s, things changed. There was more affluence, more economic uplift, and forms like R&B and pop music also became popular. But they continuously evolved in independent directions. So the people that were following rock and harder forms of music like punk and metal and all that stuff, they continued with this loyalty, with this devotion to their their kind of music, whereas pop music is a very ephemeral, a very temporary kind of thing, and it always appeals to teeny boppers and young people who really haven't gone through the pain of life, or they're not really aware. So pop has always been a phenomenon that is more popular among the younger crowd.
Right. Talking about the new wave of British heavy metal movement, notable performers are Angel Witch, Iron Maiden. Tell us about it, that when and why exactly this movement began. Okay,
so what happened was that in the late 60s, bands like Cream and Steppenwolf and later Deep Purple, Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, they started playing much heavier music. Heavier not only in terms of the music that was played, the distortion in the guitars and the rhythms and everything, but also with darker themes in the lyrics. And this started off a hard rock as a separate genre from rock, as music with its own identity, and more bands started getting influenced by these big three bands and creating music in a similar mold. Towards the middle of the 70s or the later 70s, bands like Kiss, bands like Blue Oyster Cult, and then later Van Halen in 1978, they started playing more intense and virtuosic guitar. They added that element, and there was the whole element of visual appeal and like costumes, and like, you know, bands like Judas Priest had a very distinct like stage appearance. So this newer, faster, more aggressive form of rock music evolved, which was later like called the new wave of British heavy metal music, or NWOBHM. And most prominent in this genre were like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Motorhead. I would say like these were like the three like predominantly apex bands in this genre. So the new wave of British heavy metal evolved out of hard rock, because hard rock also gave birth to punk, and punk was very simple and was just about like angst. You know, like I talked earlier, there were economic hard times. There was a time called stagflation. There was stagnation and there was inflation.
Right.
And people were frustrated. Young people didn't have jobs, so like they could relate to that music.
Right?
Exactly, they could relate to that music. And punk was very simple. People that played 3 chords formed a band. They didn't go to big labels. They just went to like very independent like music producing labels, and they didn't have big advertisement budgets. They just put flyers all over the city, or like, you know, managed to like get word across by telling like, you know, fans and this and that. So punk was simple, but like when the big punk bands like the Ramones and like the Sex Pistols and Black Flag, when these bands, they started like making money, people started getting alienated from, you know, punk, because it was like kind of it was treason by the bands, because they were becoming the very people that they were singing against. You know, they were becoming rich and like, you know, acting like celebrities and all that. So it created this division in hard rock between punk and this other more aggressive, more musically interesting and challenging form of music, which was heavy metal.
Right. And talking about heavy metal, we of course, you know, cannot miss Black Sabbath, who were the original creators. Some people say that they were the pioneers of hard rock music, and especially when it comes to the movement. And they added a little bit of darkness with their lyrics, because of which they were also, you know, accused of being the followers of Satan. So let's talk about Black Sabbath and their work.
So like Sabbath, when Sabbath started, the thing about music is like when new genres evolve, it's not like a distinct point in time, or bands don't really think that, okay, we're going to start off a new genre of music, right? They're just playing the music that they feel, it's art. So whatever they felt, they played. They wanted to play heavy distorted rhythms, and like, you know, they wanted like dark lyrical themes, and like influenced by Satanism and witchcraft and stuff like that. They had like very, very, very dark lyrical content. And in retrospect, like, you know, you can hear like Tony Iommi, the guitar player for Black Sabbath, say that, like, you know, accept that they are the pioneers of heavy metal.
Yeah.
But when they started off, it wasn't like that. They were just like, you know, playing aggressive music, and it's only retrospectively when other people attached this label to them that they said, okay, yeah, we're the pioneers of heavy metal. But when they started off, they were just playing aggressive music and trying to get darker. And it was also about shock value. Like Judas Priest took that to the next level with their, like, you know, leather and studs and all that like biker culture, like, you know, imagery. But Sabbath, because when what's his name?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah. When Ozzy Osbourne was the front man, so he was like this crazy character, and he would do like crazy things on stage, and it was all about putting up like a really crazy show and the imagery that came with it. So it wasn't like they were Satanists or they were like, you know, into witchcraft or anything. They were just performers, and they kind of figured out, they were intelligent people, so they figured out that this whole imagery is working for us and helping us become more notorious or famous. So they just fed into it, and like they would do more and more crazy stuff, and like, you know, that's how it all like built up. But they were never really into Satanism or anything like that. They just, like, you know, used that label
Yes.
to propel them to more.
And later
stardom.
they gave an interview where the disclaimer came from themselves that they are the followers of Christianity, and it's just an added drama to attract more audiences. Ozzy Osbourne was removed later because of his odd habits, and he was replaced by Ronnie James. Did that actually help grow the band's popularity?
Well, Dio, like Ozzy was like a great singer, but Dio was like one of the most incredible vocalists in metal and rock of all, all time. He's like one of the top singers. So Dio definitely the albums that Sabbath had with Dio were definitely like something else. I think, in my personal opinion, a lot of people will not agree with this, or purists will say that it was Ozzy that made Sabbath, and the original Sabbath was with Ozzy. But I believe Dio was phenomenal. He was really, really out there, and I think he helped Sabbath quite a bit. Yeah.
Right. Now, moving to our next favorite band, Led Zeppelin. Everyone loves that band. Of course, most of the people from 70s and 80s, they grew up listening to this band. So how did they play a role in this movement?
Okay, so Zeppelin basically started off in the late 60s, and Robert Plant and Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones and John Bonham. They had roots in blues rock, in blues, and they just took it to the next level. Their first album, Zeppelin 1, I think that was released in 1969, if I'm not wrong, and there's a song on it, Communication Breakdown, which is one of the pioneering hard rock / metal songs. It has heavy rhythms, heavy distorted guitars, pummeling drums, and a fantastic bass line, and then of course Plant's signature vocals, which were something else. So they were very influential, they were very popular, but they were not really a heavy metal band. They had some really heavy songs, but they were basically a very hard blues rock band, and they were just able to push the limits of what rock can do, of what hard music can do, and what bands mean to people, because they were so influential and they had such a huge following. They were probably, in my opinion, the first super group that had incredible fame and stardom and success, and they influenced Jimmy Page's flamboyance, and his flair on stage really influenced a lot of performers that came afterwards, a lot of guitar players. Everybody wanted to be like him, and then their epic songs like Stairway and Kashmir, and so there's so many. I mean, if you name one song, people will say, why don't you talk about this song or that song? But there's so many great songs.
They had the ability from going from 0 to 100. If you listen to Stairway to Heaven, and then The Immigrant Song.
Exactly,
two songs
opposite
poles
songs,
apart.
And even in Stairway, it starts off very mellow and just with the woodwind sound and the acoustic guitar, and then it progresses to a pummeling heavy riff at the end during the outro. So they had they would make very complex songs and interesting fantasy based themes, and they really took the whole genre to the next level, but they weren't per se a heavy metal band. They were hard rock, hard blues rock, but they influenced a lot of guitarists that came in the late 70s and in the early 80s. Jimmy Page was one of the most influential guitar players, is one of the most influential guitar players of all time. So they had a strong influence while not being heavy metal themselves. They were one of the most influential bands of all time.
And the vocals are something that make them stand out as well.
Definitely, because Robert Plant has the highest, one of the highest pitched voices, and nobody in this tribute to Led Zeppelin, which I'm sure you've seen on YouTube, where Nancy and Ann Wilson, the sisters from Heart, they cover Stairway to Heaven. Only a woman can sing like Robert Plant. Nobody can sing like Robert Plant.
Right. And now, last but not the least, Deep Purple. Your thoughts on Deep Purple, and of course you have, grown up listening to their songs, about their lyrics, about their music, everything. What do you have to say about that?
Well, Deep Purple, once again, the big three, Sabbath, Zeppelin, and Deep Purple, extremely influential. Started off more as a progressive / blues rock band, and then like evolved through many incarnations, many different lineups. But like the most famous was like John Lord and Ian and bass and Richie Blackmore, of course. Blackmore has like more or less been a staple until he got sick of the Deep Purple label, and he created Rainbow, and he wanted to get away from that, that branding, because he was so much more than just Deep Purple, So Deep Purple, of course, super influential band, pushing the the limits and the boundaries with every new album, and very prolific, creating like even 2 albums per year, and all with like phenomenal songs. So Deep Purple, of course, have also been like very influential. And because this is art, it's not like it's not science where you can say, okay, like when this was invented, this was a definitive moment, and then like this happened and this happened. Like
it keeps evolving.
Exactly. Art is like a very fluid, very gaseous kind of like phenomenon. It's very gossamer. It's very like you can't like divide it into discrete points in time. Everybody takes their own influence, puts in their own heart and soul, and creates something new. If it's good enough, it becomes a part of the mainstream, and like art progresses a little. And this is how like evolution takes place. So Deep Purple, again, like you can't say enough about how influential and how like important they are to the whole genre.
Right. It was great talking to you, Tipu. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you much. It was good to be here.
That was Tipu Sultan with a tribute to the great rock bands. We will be right back after a quick short break. Stay tuned to find out more. Welcome back. We are here with our top 10 movie recommendations. Now, who doesn't love to watch horror movies? And so we are here bringing you our top 10 recommendations for this week. On number 1, we have The Ring. The Ring is a 2002 supernatural horror thriller film directed by Gore Verbinski and starring Naomi Watts, Martin Henderson, David Dorfman, and Brian Cox. It is a remake of Hideo Nakata's 1998 Japanese horror film Ring, based on Koji Suzuki's 1991 novel of the same name. Watts portrays a journalist who investigates a cursed videotape that seemingly kills the viewers 7 days after watching it. The film earned $249 million in box office.
Before you die, you see the ring. You see the ring.
Number 2, we have A Quiet Place. Quiet Place is a 2018 American horror film directed by John Krasinski and written by Brian Woods, from a story conceived by Woods and Beck. The plot revolves around a father and a mother who struggle to survive and raise their children in a post-apocalyptic world inhabited by blind monsters with an acute sense of hearing. The movie rocked the box office with a net business of $350 million. On number 3, we have Amityville: The Awakening. After Ballet learns that her new house was a site for a mass murder in 1974, and her brother, who is in a coma state, comes back to life, she gets suspicious and believes that he is possessed. Although the movie could not make much on box office, yet it is still believed to be one of the most horror movies ever.
I just wanted to talk to James.
I want to give him a kiss.
There are no documented cases of anyone with James's injuries ever recovering.
On number 4, we have Eli. A boy becomes trapped in a haunted house while undergoing treatment for a rare disease. The slow horror movie is so captivating that it indulges the viewers in no time with its jump scares.
Hello, Eli. I'm Dr. Horn.
Hello.
I hope you don't think of this as a medical facility. To me, it's a home. And for now, it's your home.
Oh, it's been so long.
Everything we hoped for is right here.
On number 5, we have The Curse of La Llorona. In 1970s Los Angeles, the legendary ghost La Llorona is stalking the night and the children. Ignoring the eerie warning of a troubled mother, a social worker and her own kids are drawn into a frightening, supernatural realm. Their only hope of surviving La Llorona's deadly wrath is a delusioned priest who practices mysticism to keep evil at bay. Earning $123 million on box office, this movie is also one of the most scary movies of all time.
Have they felt the sting of her tears? They will. And she will come for them. Who? La Llorona.
On number 6, we have The Ritual. Reuniting after the tragic death of their friend, 4 college pals set out to hike through the Scandinavian wilderness. A wrong turn leads them into the mysterious forest of Norse legend, where an ancient evil exists and stalks them at every turn. The movie was rated 6.1 on IMDb, yet still became a favorite for many.
So we're going to talk about it then or not?
It was a nightmare, Phil.
Well, what happened to you then?
We got spooked and we had bad dreams, all right?
On number 7, we have In the Tall Grass. A brother and sister enter a field of tall grass to rescue a boy, but they soon realize they cannot escape and something evil lurks in the grass. Written by Stephen King, this mind bender keeps you hooked for straight 1.5 hours. Unfortunately, it didn't make much on IMDb with a ratings of only 6.1.
Help! I'm lost in here.
Did you hear that?
Someone out there?
On number 8, we have Hereditary. When the matriarch of the Graham family passes away, her daughter and grandchildren begin to unravel cryptic and increasingly terrifying secrets about their ancestry, trying to outrun the sinister fate they have inherited. With 7.3 ratings on IMDb, this slow-paced movie might not be everyone's cup of tea.
Mom?
I don't like this. Dad, I don't like this.
What's happening? Enough! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother! Wait, Mom, what's happening? Make it stop! Make it stop!
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
On number 9, we have Don't Listen. After the strange death of his young son and their new home, Daniel hears a ghostly plea for help, spurring him to seek out a renowned paranormal expert. Although the ratings are 6.1 on IMDb, this epic horror package does not let you sit peacefully.
Eric. Eric.
And last but not the least, a classic horror story, which is the latest release. 5 people traveling by camper crash into a tree. When they recover, the road they were driving on has been replaced by an impenetrable forest and a wooden house.
Sai come si esce da questa foresta? Che vuol dire che non è una foresta?
Something's up with her.
And that is it from today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.